Hello, and welcome to the Humblewood. Due to technical difficulties, the first episode of The Mystery of the Churn was recorded, broadcast on Twitch, but then was lost to the sands of time. All of the other episodes are up on YouTube, on Penny Dragon's YouTube channel, and you can watch them. But I felt like we should probably introduce the party and introduce the adventure, because the first episode, I really enjoyed it. I thought it started off quite interestingly, and so I thought that I would just kind of read back my recap of that first session and inform the viewers as to what the campaign was all about from the very beginning. So initially, it was going to be a one-shot. I just wanted to run a game for some friends. I wanted people to see what Humblewood was about. Humblewood is a campaign setting by a company called Hit Point Press, and it's basically 5th edition D&D, but with forest critters, birdfolk and humblefolk. Birdfolk are all the birds, and humblefolk are all the critters on the forest floor. And you'd think it would be kids stuff, but you can tell some pretty deep stories with I find that the removing us from the tropes of elves and dwarves and other races that you can sort of make approximations to the real world, whereas with animals you can tell very real stories and have a little extra bit of removal from the harsh realities of real life, and still sort of it allows you to touch some subjects that you might not be able to touch otherwise. So let's just get right into it. So we start off with a map of the Humblewood. This is a map that I did on Incarnate based on the map that's in the Humblewood book, which in my opinion is really good. Mine is updated from having played a couple of different campaigns. There are extra towns, and the map has changed based on the actions of some of the players. There are rivers where there were no rivers before, for example. And so I made it. I like making all my maps and using Incarnate. So there you go. It is. So session 1, so it was going to be one shot, but then we did session 1, and people were like, we really like this, and I said, why don't we do a 2-shot? We could come back in a couple weeks and do another part, and so we did that, and I said, why don't we do a 3-shot? And also the conceit was that they would gain a level each time we played, so that you could get that high level play without it being a pickup game where you just create a high level character, which instead you're kind of working your way up, and you're not spending 2 years doing it. So in practice, it turned out that was hard to do, especially at the medium to high levels, and we've slowed down, although we've got 17 sessions in now, so we're getting there, and the party are 13th level, so we're getting up there. We're getting into those crazy levels. Anyway, so how far into the broadcast am I already? We're only like 3 minutes in. Good. Okay, so let's start this then. So we are. The action takes place in the Humblewood, way down here on the Sword Coast. On the Sword Coast. sorry. D&D 5e on the Talon Grip Coast, in a town called Saltersport. Just a nice little town. It's the only town that's on the ocean in the Humblewood. It's mostly inhabited by birdfolk, raptors, who mostly look like puffins and seagulls and hawks and things. So there's the town. And so session 1, into the Churn. It is late raptorial spring. I created a calendar with days of the week and months and stuff. Unlike most people's fantasy calendars, I didn't make I made all the months sound a lot like the month that they're copying. So raptorial is April, so that people could still use the regular months, or so that they would. I've always found as a DM that players are never interested in having weird calendars with different numbers of months in the year and different numbers of weeks in the day and all days in the week and all that. That's just dumb. So late raptorial spring, Salter's Port, Talon Grip Coast. It's a warm spring following a mild winter. The scorched grove to the north is growing larger. The bandit coalition is gaining strength, and Alderheart, which is the capital city, is hard-pressed to fight both the fires and the coalition. At this point, I didn't know where the campaign was going, since there wasn't a campaign. It was just a one-shot. So this is like the normal state of Humblewood. There's the bandit coalition who are unhappy about the bird folk ruling, and then there's the fires in the Scorched Grove that are the basic campaign that comes with the book. Salter's Port, the largest port town in the Humblewood, is hosting its annual spring festival. Merchants, farmers, and flim-flam artists all gather to talk about what they missed over the winter. And so what I did in the game was that I introduced the characters, one or two at a time. Everybody waited their turn, and then we had little roleplay scenes to introduce them. And so we start with Sir Arthur and Hobor. In a forest clearing just off the road leading to Salter's Port, there is a blue pavilion with a bright yellow rose upon it. Small Gerbine, mouse type, white fur, in his leather under armor is making porridge in his helmet. Squire Arthur's master is not yet up, but old Sir Harold always likes his bug and berry porridge first thing. Odd, he's normally up first, despite his 100+ years in the wood. Arthur, not sure what to do, hears a harumph, and looks over at a small spiky creature that just emerged from the tree line. A tiny hedge! Hedges are a playable race in Humblewood. They look like hedgehogs. Sir Harold is also a hedgehog. He's a hedge knight. Arthur is a Gerbine, which is a race in Humblewood which are based on mice. And the art for them, they're kind of based on gerboa, which are jumping mice. And so this is like but he's just like a common white mouse. The size of the animals have been changed to make them playable races. And so the mice are like 2 to 3 feet tall. Hedges also. Other creatures are bigger than hedges and Gerbine. In fact, those are the two smallest races in this game. In the playable races so far. Hey, you there, young lad! The hedgehog type, filthy, speaks. A cloud of flies taking off with a sudden noise. Oh yes. Are you hungry? There's plenty to go around. Master Harold, Sir Harold. No answer from the old man in the tent. Harold, oh good. What is your name, boy? The old hedge moves slowly towards the camp. Maybe she's a hag. A lot of hags out in the woods. Arthur, my lady, this is the tent of Harold Gwent, my master. The old hedge lady finally arrives and pushes the young lad out of the way with her cudgel. She has like a staff. She is almost spherical, with moss, leaves, and branches seemingly growing from her spiky back. She is festooned with bags, packs, belts, harnesses, a few cages, and what seems to be a small lemon tree growing off her back. So he is here. I thought so. Well, move aside, the old lady says. Let Hobor take a good sniff of his tent. Arthur moves to the tent and ducks under the flap, and finds his master, gently passed away in the night. His threadbare blanket covers him. Arthur is a squire no longer. The lad falls to his knees. Yes, this is a highly original beginning to a campaign. Everybody loved Knight's Tale and The Hedge Knight by George R.R. Martin. This is the same story. His master has passed away in the night. Arthur remembers his master's words from the night before. I know you were hoping to break a few lances with old Mudfoot at the jousts tomorrow, but we are on a secret mission, you see. Got to meet with old Giscog. Security of the realm and all that. But fret not, you'll have time enough for jousting later. Arthur emerges from the tent, tears welling in his eyes. He looks at the old lady, and she prompts him. So, well, hurry up. Where's old Sir Harold? It smells earthy in there. My lady, I regret to tell you, Sir Harold passed away in the night, I fear. I'm very sorry. It takes a few moments to get the message through to the old lady. She blinks. She harumphs. Always like old Harold. Getting me to do his bidding, then disappearing. Well then, let's get on with it. Arthur gathers up his armor and shield and takes the old man's sword, a well-worn but solid rapier called Quill. He looks over at Mudfoot, the riding mole, and they lock eyes. Mudfoot was the old man's mount, but young Arthur spent the past few years taking care of him. Time to do some digging, say some words. and knight a squire. So in my Humblewood game, there are no horses, but there are riding moles, and there are pigs, and there are other creatures that you can ride. Quail. Yeah, so that's the intro for Hobor, for Hobor and Sir Arthur. Maybe a lot for a one shot, but there you have it. All right, we now introduce Argus the Quill. Up the road a ways, a group of pilgrims is on the road, having risen early to get to Salter's Port as early as possible. The group formed up in Alderheart for self-protection and made the trip without event. It's a few days trip from Alderheart to Salter's Port. The Humblewood is not a big. The campaign space of the Humblewood is not huge. Argus the Quill, a striking Gallus, peacock type, white and red, stands on the edge of the clearing holding up a thick old tome. There is an image in the tome of a hedge knight encampment with a riding mole, blue tent with yellow rose, and a campfire. This is what he sees before him as he looks over the book and at the clearing that's in front of him, plus an ancient hedge woman and some kind of grave digging effort. Ever since he acquired this weird book from a Vulpin who owed him some money, it has given him strange insights like this one. He heads over to help the Gerbine in the hedge to dig the grave. I'm just going to drag over some illustrations of the... clicking on the wrong thing here. So here's a little Sir Arthur. This token is pretty much updated. Later on, he got the full plate armor with the roses on it. Before that, he had just chainmail. There's old Mudfoot. That's a photo of a miniature that I have, which is basically a pack mole. Who else do we have? Lady Hobor. There's old Lady Hobor. I'm trying to find... Oh, we don't have... actually, we don't have a token for Argus because his character left. Andrew, who plays Argus, likes to play different characters, and so he replaced Argus with another character. But Argus is here in this illustration. It's actually the whole party. So Argus is the peacock in the back there. Yeah. So he's a Gallus, and Gallus in this game are basically the flashy birds, the art for the game shows a Gallus as being like a chicken or a rooster. And I said that he acquired his book from a Vulpin, who are people who look like foxes. Interestingly, you would assume that they would make the foxes sort of like big and strong and scary, and they do have a bite attack. But they're actually tricksy. They're kind of like the foxes from Japanese folklore. They have illusion magic, and they're very tricky. Okay, so let's now. So this is Argus the Quill. So let's skip over to Osier and Nightshade. Meanwhile, back at Salter's Port, we meet Osier and Nightshade. Osier is a tall, short-beaked corvum, grackle type. Corvums are basically your corvids, your blackbirds, your crows, rooks, ravens, blue jays, anything that's a corvum. And so he's a dusk corvum. I think he's a dusk corvum, or is he? Anyway, there's a couple of different kinds of corvums in the game too. Anyway, so Osier is a tall, short-beaked corvum, grackle type. So grackles are kind of like your lawn birds. They have they're glossy black, and they have sort of like a sheen, like a blue sheen across their necks, which looks beautiful. And they sometimes have white spots on their wings too. Outfitted in dark robes like a traveling wizard, and he's working the festival. He's at the spring festival at Salter's Port. For a few silvers, itinerant fortune tellers can rent a small booth, and Osier has done this. He plies his trade as a fortune teller. He deals out his Amaranthine Tarot, which is a deck of cards of all the different gods of the Amaranthine pantheon, and he bilks believers of their silver and gold. Lurking in the shadows is his bodyguard Nightshade, a tall, slim Mapach, ferret type albino. So in Humblewood, Mapach they're pretty much raccoons. But they specify that any kind of animal that has that's That's either a raccoon or a weasel or a ferret or things like that fall into this class or into this racial type. But the Mapache, as described in the book, are very they build things, they repair things, they're scroungers. We changed up the ferret to be a little more to have more, better climber, better swimmer, but no scrounging. Yeah, so Nightshade, albino ferret. She looks like a slinky, swathed in a full body robe in the southern style. Osher had a few run-ins with unhappy customers and unsavory competitors, and so he's hired Nightshade to give him some protection. Nightshade will typically, as the relationship progresses, Nightshade will usually either protect him for 10 gold pieces, and if he forgets to pay her, she would kill him. So it's a very binary relationship. Osher is currently reading for an old Gerbine man. Remember, Gerbine are mice. They look like mice. Dressed in old-fashioned but threadbare finery. He reads the old man, and his insight tells him that the man is tired and sad, and he wants to hear some good news. He notes the old man's name is Lord Thistlebranch. Somebody called him that, and Osher heard it. And he's a minor noble in a world where nobles are on the way out. Nightshade's trained instincts spot the overfull coin purse. Osher deals from the bottom of the deck, punches it up with an illusion, just a quick cantrip, and gives the old man a good reading. Ardea, sun over Henwin, sunflowers, the best omen. Sun over sunflowers means my sweet body is in Elysium for sure. I miss her so much, says the old man. As he leaves, Nightshade brushes up against the old man and lifts a handful of gems and a small cameo locket from the open pouch. This is a trick that Osher and Nightshade have perfected. Examining the locket a bit later, Nightshade finds that the locket is old, made of silver, and contains a tiny portrait of a beautiful Gerbine girl. Mouse type, white fur. The caption says, Lady Bronwyn Thistlebranch. Maybe this will fetch a penny. Just have to find a buyer. Asking around, some folks recommend a Mapache wizard named Gizcog. Arthur's first joust. So have we met all the characters? Yes, we have. So Arthur's first joust. So we just kind of skip forward again. Arthur visits the Amaranthine tree, which is a flowering tree in town where all of the different religions kind of gather to worship their particular god in the Amaranthine pantheon. So he prays and heads over to the lists to enroll in the jousting. He prays because he is a young paladin. He is a paladin of Henwin, who is the hedge god, a god of gardening and small growing things. So he heads over to the lists to enroll in jousting. Old Gizcog can wait just a little bit. Hobor and Argus tag along. The jousters are all much larger. There are no other hedge knights here today. Arthur's first opponent is a huge servant, riding a huge razorback boar. Sir Arrowhead Melton is the name. The riders salute each other and line up on the central rail. Osher, watching this from the other end, bets on Sir Arthur. He doesn't know him, but he feels that somebody so small, riding such an old riding wall, must have an ace up his sleeve. And in fact, the ace comes from Osher himself. He casts an illusion to hamper Sir Melton's vision. Basically casts a blurry illusion in front of Sir Melton's visor. Hobor, from the other direction, also makes it rain on Sir Melton to make his armor chafe. Hobor also casts guidance on Sir Arthur. Argus, why not? Don't forget, this is D&D, right? All the players are all like, yeah. So everybody just kind of piled onto poor Sir Melton Arrowhead, the huge servant. Oh, what's a servant? Servants are like the deer. They're like deers with antlers. They're the humble folk. They're the tallest of the humble folk. In this case, Sir Melton is a moose. He has a huge moose rack, and he's a heavily armored fighter type. Anyway, so I think. Oh yes, Argus. Argus kind of tossed some inspiration towards the tiny knight, which is something that Gallus are very, very charismatic, and they can just grant inspiration to people, kind of like the way bards do. Bardic inspiration. Meanwhile, down the list, Sir Arthur's nerves are calmed by old Mudfoot's calm. The old girl almost limps into line, but seems to gain strength just by being in the joust. Oh, there goes my camera. Hang on. Never a boring day with me. So let me restart. Sir Arthur's nerves are calmed by old Mudfoot's calm. The old girl almost limps into line, but seems to gain strength just by being in the joust. Let me change up the map, actually. See if I can do this. Don't want people to see all the maps, but might as well jump in. So this is the map that I made in Incarnate of the market area. And so these, so if you look at the tokens, from higher levels, Osier likes to turn some of the party members into T-Rexes. Anyway. So there's the... Just keep that for flavor. So we kind of did this as just a really quick skill challenge. Just roll basically one skill roll for Sir Arthur. He rolled pretty good. I mean, these are first level characters too, right? So like one hit and you're out. So the old girl, Mudfoot. I guess she's a girl now. Earlier on, I think I said Mudfoot was a boy, but apparently she's a girl. So also, I kind of wrote this a while ago. So as the lances are lowered and the beasts thunder into their gallop, Mudfoot moves faster than she has in years. Arthur and Melton break 3 lances each, but after the third tilt, Melton is found sprawling in the mud. Sir Arthur has won! He comes away with a large trophy and the nickname Small Knight, or as the players called him, Sir Squeak, the Mouse Knight. So yeah. Later on in the game, it's really tempting, to make Sir Melton like a villain in the game or an enemy or something like that. But no, he becomes like best friends. He has a whole gang. He has a gang of knights that he hangs out with called. I want to say the Civic-Minded Five. No, they're called the Knights of Daring Deeds. That's right, the KODD. But then they adopted Sir Arthur. And then change their names to the Hedge Knights in future episodes. So you watch them on YouTube. 17 episodes, 14 hours each or something like that. You got some watching to do. All right, anyway. So fast forward to evening, Gizcog's Emporium. Early evening, and both groups have met in front of a small, unassuming vendor's booth. A wizened Mapach, Tanuki type. I decided that Gizcog is an NPC that Penny Dragon has created for their Mag of Holding series. Once every couple months, they'll launch a Kickstarter for a Mag of Holding, which is kind of like a zine for 5th edition D&D. Each mag has a theme. There was a pirate one. There was a gothic horror one. Upcoming one is the Feywild one, for example. And they fund each one separately. And so Gizcog is kind of like the NPC who presents. He's the what's the one from the Forgotten Realms? I forget his name now. The Ed Greenwood character. Anyway, he's the sort of the wizard who narrates, and he also plays sort of a lecherous traveling wizard with a giant pig who buys and sells magic items. So I made him a raccoon in this one, and he looks like one of the raccoon dogs from Pompoko. So he's like a magical raccoon. Tanuki type. So he's energetically selling junky items to passersby. He loves these festivals. People have spent the whole winter cooped up. They're anxious to spend some silver. His table is policed by a trio of spherical cogwork machines that tell people not to damage the merchandise, like modrones. He looks across at the 5 adventurers and raises his eyebrows. He holds up a glossy magazine titled Mag of Holding. Are you here for the ad in the Penny Saver? Are you looking for adventure and work? Yes, all of you people hearing my horrible Scottish accent, can just... Anyway, Sir Arthur staggers forward towards Gizcog under his giant trophy. Yes, we are here. I won the tourney. And Hobor kind of moves forward with her cloud of bugs around her, looks over the junk. Gizcog tries to sell her a hoof of glory. It's a severed Capran hoof on a chain. Caprans are a playable race in Humblewood that haven't been released yet. They're still in playtest, and they're kind of like goat people. She demurs. She doesn't want to be able to attune an extra attuned item by having this giant hand hanging around her neck. Whatever. Anyway, she lays her staff down on the table, and a convoy of spores flows from a moldy old scroll on the table and takes up residence on the wood. The scroll looks better for it. Argus moves forward and shows Gizcog his old tome. Gizcog leafs through it and mentions this. This was once in my library. This book brought you here. It is a book of augury, my boy. Not very powerful, but enlightening if you're into astrology. Look for the signs. Apparently this book will show you things once a day that are going to happen to you later. Gizcog herds everyone into his small booth, just as Nightshade comes around the corner ready to sell some stolen merchandise. She holds out the purloined locket and asks if this might be worth something. One of Gizcog's automatons examines the locket. The clockwork says, "This was made before she was born." Who? Lady Bronwyn Violet Thistlebranch was born 18 years ago, but the locket is 30 years old. Gizcog says, Oh, a brooch of wishful thinking. This grants you a very special wish. Oh, but the magic is gone. I presume Lady Bronwyn too. I can offer you 100 gold for this piece. Nightshade is paid, and she joins the rest of the party inside. Strangely, this tent seems to have a back door that doesn't lead outside. Instead, it leads directly into a huge warehouse with tall shelves and stacks of crates extending into the distant darkness. Let me show you that map. This is another map that I made on Incarnate. Oh wow, I haven't even updated the map since the party was here last time. Cool. Yeah, it's just a really big... it's just a huge old warehouse that goes off into darkness. It's basically the warehouse from the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah. So, to the right, just going in, there is a loft, set up like a comfortable library and living space. Up there are two figures, an armored Mapak, groundhog type, wielding a large flail, and a dark-robed female Vulpin, a grey fox, both peering intently at the motley group standing in the dim light. Gizcog says, "Thank you for agreeing to work with us. Welcome to my warehouse. You see," he rushes on breathlessly, "earlier this week, a ship, the Lady Rose, wrecked in the Churn. I purchased much of the flotsam from scavengers and transported it to my warehouse. Much of it is mundane, but some is exotic." He points to many sacks of grain under the stairs leading to the loft. All of that's rice. Rice. Got it from the Far East. It's going to be big with the university students. He points into the darkness. Anyway, since the wreckage was brought in, I noticed some odd happenings. Mostly slime related. As in, there is slime in odd places in my warehouse. Maybe you lot can investigate. In exchange, you could have some items from my collection. He stops talking and looks up at, at all the folk that are standing around him. What say you? Oh no, sorry. He looks up at the pair of folk that are up on the balcony. The group also look up at the pair. Hobor pegs the Lady Vulpin as a cleric, at not of a light god, the dark god. Probably that dog Kren, the only evil god in the pantheon, representing trickery, larceny, murder. Represented by a black fox with glittering teeth. Hobor grunts and clacks her staff on the ground. A cloud of mites kind of flies around. Argus, who has seen a thing or two in the underbelly of Elderheart, pegs the armored Mapach as a bodyguard type. Probably a tough seasoned fighter. We now jump to Slimes in the Dark. Sir Arthur eagerly accepts Gizcog's terms, and the group advances slowly into the darkness. Ahead to the left, there are tall shelves and stacks of crates. To the right, a collection of ancient statues of jackal-headed demigods, golden sarcophagi, and a magic circle in heavy stone, somehow transported to this place. The magic circle is all shattered, as you can see. Far off to the left, in the darkness, the flotsam recovered from the wreck of the Lady Rose. Crates, barrels, and a couple of ships' launches, all slightly damp and reeking of the ocean. Argus kind of like, in his haste to investigate, gets off to a bad start. His feet immediately get stuck in a pool of sticky slime unseen on the stone floor. The Mapach in the loft above shakes his head and says, "You're losing points, fancy chicken." Osier and Nightshade. Osier creates an illusionary double and sends it off into the dim light to distract potential enemies. He moves to a safe spot, and his bodyguard Nightshade stays close to him, muttering about, "Better get paid or else." Glancing over at that magic circle, she can just tell that doesn't look like a good thing. That looks like an unsafe thing. Don't go onto that magic circle, boss. In fact, she feels like it looks like it's pulsing and rippling. It's probably nothing good can come of broken magic circles. Sir Arthur and Hobor. Sir Arthur kind of helps Argus to get out of his predicament and draws Quill and moves forward. He is brave, and he is tiny. But he has friends! Friends! Hobor grunts and just stays close behind the lad. She just kind of thinks back to her dream of old Sir Harold, beseeching her to keep an eye on the lad, still so young. She enchants her cudgel and gets ready for action. Apparently she knew old Sir Harold. Up ahead, there is sound and movement. The sound is liquid and squishy. The movement is undulating and hypnotic. One of the large statues, a golden cat-headed humanoid, seems to ripple as a strange transparent, but also shimmering slime slides off of it and undulates towards the group. Slimes blip blorp blip into the light and attack. Slimes are creatures that were introduced in the Humblewood campaign book. They're pretty great. They're really great low-level bad guys. You don't have there's no moral quandaries with fighting and killing slimes. So they're pretty great early villains. To get especially if you're running a game for kids or whatever. You don't want to train your kids to just start murdering sentient beings. You get slimes. They have low armor class, a lot of hit points, good fun. Combat is joined. Argus looses arrows into the large shifting slime, perched on a seated statue of a jackal-headed demigod. Sir Arthur, in his first real fight, bravely charges forward, followed by Hobor. "For Sir Harold!" He leaps 15 feet into the air and stabs the shifting slime. Hobor also screams, "For Sir Harold!" and smashes the slime, scattering it and also smashing the priceless statue underneath it. From way behind, you hear Sir Gizcog, you hear old Gizcog screaming, "My priceless artwork!" The groundhog in the loft, however, nods and says, "She looks like compost, but she can hit hard." Druids with their shillelagh spell. There is a lull in the fight. The magic circle pulses once more and then erupts in a huge, horrid-smelling slime. It rolls up to Hobor and smashes her into the ground. Her bugs, twigs, and oddments just scattering far and wide. She is out like a light, close to death. She seems somehow flattened and deflated in one single blow. Osier cautiously moves forward, followed by Nightshade. "Stay safe, fool!" Says Nightshade. Osier and Nightshade attack the putrid slime with spell and dagger. Sir Arthur, and while they drive it back, Sir Arthur moves up and touches Hobor. Henwin's golden life energy revives the fallen hedge, and all of the bugs and molds crawl back to Hobor. The smelly slime is joined by smaller sticky slimes. Argus is forced to melee one of them, but manages to get away from it. Argus is not a melee fighter. He wants to be a ranged fighter. That first massive blow seemed to be a lucky shot, the one that felled Hobor. The party pour their spells, arrows, and daggers into the huge stinky slime, and it is badly hurt. The smaller slimes are likewise picked off by Osier's magic missiles. He's very good at, distributing magic missiles to take them all out. He did very good in that fight. The putrescent slime tries to engulf Sir Arthur, but his shield and armor fend off the slimy pseudopods. He resists his terrible odor. "Not much worse than Sir Harold's boots," he mutters. Osier freezes a big chunk off the slime, and Nightshade finally finishes it off with a dagger straight through the mass of his body. It deflates and pours away like nasty sewer ooze. Hobor mutters, "Atta girl, maybe you should be the knight." Sir Arthur's little soul is almost crushed. "I saved your life." He decides to redouble his bravery to gain Hobor's approval. Nightshade casually leans against a slightly smashed crate and purloins a nice silver circlet. Later on, she is informed by the DM that she has a circlet of blasting. Not a great item, but it's a magic item. Alright, fast forward to a job offer. In the loft, the two strangers clap politely. They'll do, says the vixen. That's a female fox. The party troops up to the loft to talk business. Gizcog speaks. Everyone, meet Milena, the vixen, and Fred Portnoy, the groundhog. Milena is here looking for some strong folk to retrieve something from the Churn. Lady Milena? The grey fox steps forward. I am a worshipper of Kren. Who here has any issue with my faith? The group shuffle around. Kren's an evil god, they say, but there have been whispers lately that Kren's flowers have appeared on the amaranthine trees in this very town. Could Kren have finally returned to the Pantheon? Does that mean Kren's not evil anymore? Does that mean the Pantheon's becoming evil? Who knows? Argus thinks back to when he made the decision to come here, based on the image that he saw in his magic book, a port city, and Kren's eyes and teeth in the sky above it. He keeps his thoughts to himself. No one replies, but Nightshade blurts, you promised us items for your collection. Let's talk about that first, wizard. Gizcog dumps a bunch of trinkets onto the table, and the group look through them. They're pretty much a bunch of uncommon magic items. And so they kind of like, during the break, we had a break later on. During the break, the characters picked through them and equipped those items. We also leveled the characters up during the break. Sir Arthur speaks up. As long as no one harms the innocent, I have no problems with a sister of Kren. Milena looks down on the tiny knight. The innocent are often the architects of their own misfortune. But yes, I intend no harm to any innocents. She turns and points to a map of Salter's Port lying on a table. 3 nights ago, I'll bring you back to the main map. I'll just bring this forward. It's story time with Richard. Yeah, so the Churn. This is the area she's talking about. 3 nights ago, the Lady Rose ran aground in the Churn with all hands lost. I want you to go out there and find someone for me. I have my way of knowing that she is still alive, and will survive for a few days more on this island. She points to one of the islands on the map. I offer you each 100 gold acorns to bring her back. Gold acorns, that's gold pieces in this game. Ozier says, how about 200? And tries to get close to Milena, reaching out a wing to touch her, to cast friends. And the armored groundhog, sees him coming from 100 miles away, and moves with tremendous speed, despite his heavy armor. And Ozier fairly bounces off the metal-clad warrior. Where you going, boy? Hands off the lady! Nightshade, this is a fighter who has the intercept ability. So he's literally his class is fighter bodyguard. So he intercepted Ozier, and Ozier tried to touch Milena. Anyway, so Nightshade is only a touch slower, moving like only a ferret can, sliding in between Ozier and the groundhog. Hey! Hands off the wizard. And so they kind of like, face off. Arthur pats Hobor on the back. His gauntlets stay stuck on her, and says, this old lady almost died for your little test. We do this for 200 coins each or nothing. Milena smiles and pats Portnoy in the back. Stand down, soldier. We're all friends here. Portnoy and Nightshade don't even hear the words. They stand nose to nose. Portnoy smiles and says, are you thinking of all the ways you could kill me now? Nightshade whispers back, I always do. Portnoy whispers back to her, 4. Nightshade leaps back, only 4? What kind of killer are you? Portnoy shrugs, I'm a little tired today. Tomorrow I could make it 6. Anyway, Milena, she continues, the person you're looking for is a servant doe named Yolka. She's carrying a magic ring. If alive, bring her to me. If not, bring me the ring. The ring cannot be removed without the use of a saw. I'll give you a 100 bonus if she's alive. I would prefer her to be alive. But if not, well, just bring the ring back. Osier can tell. Osier is good at reading people. Osier can tell that she wants more than just the ring. There's something on the island she wants other than the ring. What? Hobor steps up and barks at Melina and Vulpin. Bark, 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 bark. What are you not telling us, servant of the Dark One? Melina looks a bit surprised, but doesn't volunteer much. I guess Hobor had a bad intimidation roll. I would say this: whatever you do on the island, beyond the rescue of the servant, is entirely up to you. Saltar's Nightlife, Part 1. The group leave to go rest up. They decide to head out in the morning. Partner gives Nightshade the chin wag. Stay safe, Whitefur. I'll see you later. Nightshade puts up her hand. Not if I see you first. He smiles. Ooh, I like it. Stabby. So the party all have lodgings provided by Melina down by the docks, a sailor's dive called Whittles. So the characters we did some by email flashback stuff, so the characters could all have activities that they did during the night. I did that for a couple of sessions, but it was really a lot of work, and so I decided, and of course, the viewers of the stream weren't seeing all of this stuff that was happening in the background, so I eventually decided to just do it during sessions, which just makes it more fun for everybody. It is understood, so next day, it is understood that the group will have to cross some very dangerous, churned water to get to the island where the wreck washed up. Most of the party have stratagems they plan to use to get across. It's a really interesting discussion to hear how each party member thought they would get across the dangerous, water channels of like surging water. Sir Arthur's plan is to buy a pair of homemade wings to glide over there. A Mapach, with his leg in a cast, assures Arthur that the wings are functional. They look somewhat rickety, but Mapach's scroungecraft always looks a little janky. Forget the guy's name. Probably not important. Alright, into the Churn. After a hearty breakfast, the stalwart heroes head over to the rocky cliffs overlooking the Churn. As expected, it's a maelstrom of wind, water, and foam. Huge waves crash against slick rock. The air is thick with salty spray. It's a sunny day, but it's cold here in the damp wind. These are very, very high cliffs with lots of caves and stuff. A lot of the houses are built into the caves. And like I said, a lot of the raptor inhabitants of this town they look like puffins. In Humblewood, none of the bird folk can fly, but they can glide. As long as they're not wearing heavy armor or carrying things in their feathery arms, they can glide. Which means that as long as there's a good wind, or as long as you can keep going down, you can fly at your normal movement speed. Gulls and puffins, real ones, soar in the wind. Looking up, there are also larger gliders. The young bird folk of Salter's Port are playing at their favorite activity, kite gliding. They leap into the air and soar high up, held down by ropes tied to rocks on the cliffs. But they're just using their arms and wings. They are the kites. After a while, they glide down and go again. From time to time, the more experienced gliders will release the ropes and glide down to the cliffs or even to the water. Most are Maran raptors, which are aquatic raptors, gulls and puffins, and they have a swim move, so they can easily swim in that in the rough swell. The cliffs are a good 50 feet higher than the surging tide. The wreck of the Lady Rose is visible, rocking in the surf close to a rocky island, a couple hundred feet away. It has a rocky beach at one end and a tall rocky outcropping at the other. I have a map for this one too. Let's take a look at this map. And I would be interested in people commenting on this video to let me know what you think. I could do all of the episodes like this. Where is the Churn? Oh, there it is. Oops, wrong thing. Sorry. Here we go. So this was another map done in Incarnate using the watercolor style. It's not my... I mean, it's cool, but it's not my favorite. I find it looks... I know actually a lot of people do like it, and they've spent a lot of time and money creating lots of stamps and things for it, so it's fine. I prefer the regular top-down map style to the watercolor style, but I made this map using that. Yeah, so Osier stops to think for a moment, and he calculates that if he can get another 50 feet of height, he can glide all the way to the island. Based on the rules of having to drop 10 feet per movement, and then his speed is 30 feet, and etc., etc. He turns to one of the kids that are all... There's a bunch of kids all standing around. You know, they're kind of like skateboarders. They're all standing around, hanging out. You know, there's some girls watching, and a bunch of guys are like gliding, and then they take turns. Turns to one of the kids. Can I rent a rope from you, hatchling? I want to try this gliding thing. Nightshade bristles. Are you insane? That looks incredibly dangerous. There are 4 preteens currently gliding overhead right at this moment. Meanwhile, Sir Arthur gets busy setting up his Mapach glider wings with help from the cellar. A bent Mapach whose broken leg looks like it'll never be right again. Hobor tries to fly into the air, lifted by all the flies and bugs that live on her, and nothing happens. There's a mighty buzzing, a cloud of twigs, and she doesn't leave the ground. While everyone kind of argues about what they're going to do, Osier just buys a rope from one of the kids, and he just goes for it. He grabs the rope in his talons, spreads his wings, and hops off the cliff into the updraft. He soars 50 feet into the air. Once up there, he releases the rope, and he just tilts forward into the wind, and even though the gusts are treacherous, he dives towards the surging water, losing more altitude than he hoped for. Down on one knee. Sorry, I didn't read that right. Wobbling, his wings catch the ground effect as he soars the last few meters over the water, and landing somewhat gracelessly on the island that he was aiming for. Down on one knee, he looks back at the group gathered on the cliffs hundreds of feet away. He sees movement in the soggy wreckage washed up around him. A lot of movement. There were a bunch of giant crabs. Another really, really great low-level monster. A bunch of giant crabs in the wreckage that were interested in old Osier. And Nightshade, meanwhile, still standing on the cliff, screams, "My money!" And she just does a run and a leap right off the cliff, dives 50 feet straight into the surf. All of the kids gathered around scream at her insanity. But because she's a rogue with really, really good skill checks, she just dives in clean. And as Nightshade kind of like ran past her, Hobor bonked her with her staff and gave her guidance. And she does a forward rolling cannonball from 50 feet up, and just does a perfect dive into the waves. Barely breaks the surface when she's halfway there, and she, using her swim movement, is able to get to the island very, very quickly, ready for action. Even before the crabs have a chance to do anything to Osier, who's basically, just a soaked blackbird. Argus thinks it's a good idea, and he sets up his rope just in a spot that was closer to the destination. Looking at the map, he just went a little higher up, pretty much where the blue line is, and Hobor, tried to climb on his back and basically just kind of pulled on his pants, and he jumped into the updraft, soared up to the limit of the rope, and then dove down without releasing this time. But he didn't release the rope. He just kind of like piked into the island, an island that wasn't far away, and then basically tied the rope to a tree, and then jumped up and glided towards the island from the second. Anyway, he set up a rope that Hobor could use to climb across. And lands gracefully on the island, ready to fight some crabs. Hobor grunts, "Humph," and hooks her cudgel over Argus's rope and slides across the island to the island zipline style. She disturbs a nest of gulls on the little island on the way and slides across the second length of rope again. But she ends up pretty much in the water halfway there because the rope wasn't taut enough, and she ends up having to clamber through the wreckage of the Lady Rose in order to get back to the island. All of the life forms living on Hobor scream and just end up crawling up to her head because half her body is submerged in water. Sir Arthur is left alone. He's very nervous about trying out the wonky wings. He ties them to his back and backs down, and then decides he's not going to do it, starts to remove them, and then he puts them back on. He's kind of nervous. Everyone on the island is shouting at him. Kids are like making bets. And finally he just says screw it, and he just leaps. He just leaps towards the little island where Argus and Hobor transited. He's a Drbeen, and so he can jump. The updraft catches his wings, and he spirals up 50 feet. One of the wings can't take the strain and snaps and is gone. The tiny knight spirals back down towards the island and crashes into a gull's nest with only a slight sprain on one leg. He unbuckles the broken wings and leaps towards his destination, landing on the wreckage of the Lady Rose before leaping again to land on the island. So yeah, he's able to almost jump across without using those wings. Large crabs swarm out of the soggy wreckage and attack. Osier backs away up the slope and takes refuge close to an old stone shrine, so old and weathered that no features are visible. Basically, the party fight some crabs and just kind of kill a bunch of crabs. And that's pretty much what happens. Sir Arthur just relies on his heavy armor, casts Bless, and just, which is like the first, I think one of the last times he ever cast a spell, instead of just using Smite. Osier just uses magic to blast away. Hobor just smashes the crabs with her club, with a Shillelagh spell cast on it. I think she was the most effective melee combatant in this battle. At low levels, that Shillelagh is a very powerful melee attack. Nightshade tries to move Osier to a safer place, but she ends up getting grabbed by crabs. In short order, the crabs are routed, and the heroes control the island. They find, unconscious and hidden in some bushes, a Servan doe. She's of a standard deer type. Further exploration reveals that the shrine is at a slight angle. That old statue that Osier found, there was a large crack behind it, revealing a cave. And that brings the first episode to an end. This is where we decided we were going to do a second, and then later on a third. And so next episode is one that we actually did an actual play, and it's episode 2, The Shrine of Amakar. So I hope you enjoyed this, and catch you on the flip side.